Hey, everybody. Welcome to the TEConnect podcast. I'm John Martin.
And I'm Dean Reverman.
Dean, we got some more stuff in the news to talk about.
We do. We got a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's nothing we like better than just finding random news stories and interesting articles and just
They're
banter
not
about
random.
And guess what? We're going to make you listen while we do it.
There's some thought behind these.
There is.
Yeah.
I suppose so, yes.
Well, maybe mine at least. I don't know about yours or what you do over there.
Well, no, I think a couple of mine are somewhat relevant to our normal discussion points. Some are just out there, but, you know.
Well, and maybe
It's fun stuff for us to talk about.
It is some fun stuff for us to talk about. Maybe I'll kick it off by saying, did you hear about this guy in Philadelphia that swapped out a barcode so that he couldn't? So he wanted to get a Dyson vacuum for $400 is the normal price, but he swapped the barcode on a $24 something else and actually got away with it. There's some tech bites for you.
There you go.
People swapping barcodes, just like good old price tags swapping back in the day.
There you go, swapping out barcodes.
Anyway,
but
we got more serious stuff to talk about,
couldn't
too.
you do like a $100 item or something to at least, seem like it's in the right range?
Oh, no. He went
But I guess
full
we got
scale.
away with it. That's all that matters.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it is Tech Bytes. Once again, we are back with another episode of a little brief discussions about what's happening in the news, some cool and interesting stuff. So stick around. We're going to talk about birds, hackers, one of our favorite topics, work trends, Google Chrome, and a disaster at a sporting event. So,
if you're looking for something to talk about around the water cooler at some point in time, we got some topics for you here.
That's right.
There you
exactly.
go.
If you're actually back at a water cooler again.
There you go.
Or you're just on a Zoom call with some folks. You can chat about this stuff. So
absolutely.
It is time for us to plug in and get connected.
Welcome to the TEConnect podcast. It's time to get connected.
All right, so hey, let's get into it. I want to start off with a story that's one of those like, great, is this some kind of sign of the apocalypse?
Yes,
crap?
the apocalypse is coming.
Or is
Here
this
it is.
just
Here's your
a
evidence.
Weird nature story. Here's the headline from NBC News: Birds acting blind when approached, dying by hundreds. Scientists don't know why. My favorite line in any article is "Scientists don't know why." And I mean, I get, hey, science sometimes takes time to figure out, but when they're just flat out going, that's a little alarming. So this is happening in the Midwest and South. Actually, some of it's happening in our vicinity here in the tri-state, Ohio, Kentucky, Indiana area. I'm going to read you a quick little snippet here from Kate Slankard, an avian biologist with the Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife Resources, says, "We have yet to figure out what the problem is. The condition seems to be pretty deadly. Symptoms include crusty or puffy eyes, neurological signs of seizures, and an inability to stay balanced. Experts said the birds have been behaving as if they are blind and exhibit other abnormalities, such as not flying away when people get close. They'll just sit still, often kind of shaking," Slankard said. "It's pretty safe to say that hundreds of birds in the state have had this problem." Now, I remember maybe about a decade or more ago hearing stories about birds just randomly falling dead and laying on the side of the roads in states. I think a lot of that was in the South. And for some reason, I feel like birds dying off dramatically has that weird, creepy, apocalyptic feel more than almost anything else. Even though it's not uncommon for random things to happen that kill off swaths of animals. Whether it's just some spread of disease or maybe some kind of ecological thing happening or evolutionary thing of some sort. Not entirely uncommon or unheard of.
We used canaries in coal mines.
That's a good point.
Right?
Yes.
If the canary dies, we're all dead.
Maybe there's the cultural connection between birds and signs, importance, and maybe that's where hearing
I think
these
so.
stories
Well,
kind
I
of
think
creep
there's
out
a spiritual nature to the bird, right?
Yeah,
I mean, there's always been this allure of, and even to this day, spiritually, people feel like if you lose a family member, they come back as a cardinal, and they're and they're watching over you and stuff like that. So there's definitely that around that mystique around the avian or the bird or whatnot. So yeah, I think it's always one of those signs that you look at and you're like, what's going on here? And serendipitously, I actually had a couple things happen to me along this line. Well, so I had a dead bird in my driveway.
Okay.
Didn't look for the crusty eyes and stuff like that, but it's always weird.
I'm gonna say also, if you do encounter a bird like this, they do recommend not touching.
Yeah, you don't want to go probing and stuff like that. So that happened to me, and then I had. We'll just call it an interaction. So I walk and run in the morning, so it's not uncommon that I come across, and pretty early, so it's not uncommon that I come across. We'll just say wildlife. I've encountered deer, I've encountered porcupines, skunks, stuff like that. But
they're all looking at you like, "What are you doing up so early, dude?"
I'm always intrigued. They are. I'm always intrigued by the birds, though. Some of them are like, they'll. You see it when you're driving. You're driving your car, and then all of a sudden, and the bird knows it. A bird comes out in front of you. It's like they're testing you. It's like, I can outrun you, sucker, kind of a thing. And
it's like a bunch of birds getting together, like pranking one another. Like, dude, I'm gonna fly in front of this car right now. Let's go,
let's go. And so I was on a run, and I had this robin who was like, I don't know if he was like testing me. Like he would like fly 4 feet in front of me, and I'm running, and then he'd fly another 4 feet, and he'd look back, and then he'd fly another 4 feet, like, And I was like, well, that was really odd behavior. He did it for like, I'm going to say 50 feet or so.
And then Dean ran into a telephone pole. So I was trying to warn you, bro.
Yeah, really. So maybe birds acting a little weird. I don't know. But in all seriousness, I mean, maybe this is some type of disease, I guess.
It's an alarming story. They actually, like a couple of things they noted is that it could potentially even be related to the cicada. The cicadas we had this year.
When in doubt, blame the cicada.
Yeah,
sorry.
No doubt, exactly. Pesticides, they said, could possibly be part of it too, but obviously they're still investigating. But there's been hundreds of birds found dead in I think they said 6 states in the Midwest and the South. So
I'm also working on a separate theory. So I have around the cicadas. If I could go down that path, because now they're gone, and it's like just. So nice.
Wasn't
and
it great? Because you went on vacation the same time as I did. And coming back from vacation, of course, I think where you went, you might have still seen them.
No, I didn't.
No, okay.
No, right.
So it was so nice to go on vacation somewhere where there weren't cicadas and come back, and the worst of it had passed while we were gone.
Yes, yes, I'm with you. So I think the cicada were very disruptive. And most animals don't, if you look up the lifespan of a squirrel or a bird, I mean, none of them are around the last time the cicada came around. So I think that kind of pissed off Mother Nature in some elements of it, because I've got squirrels that are acting a little squirrely in our yard. So we've got a couple. Yeah, there you go. We got a couple large trees, old trees, and you got the squirrel nests in them. And now they're like just chopping down random branches. And so I go in my yard, and it's just like little snippets of branches and leaves and stuff like that. And I'm like, why are the squirrels doing? I don't know if they're just like upset that the cicadas came into their world, because they're very invasive. I mean, that's what the whole deal with the cicada was.
I wonder if like this is like they think that's the apocalypse to them.
Right. Yes.
They're like the plague of cicadas. Like, well, that's it. The world's coming to an end, folks. Just tear it all down.
We're burning this baby down, I guess.
It's the humans or us. We're taking them down.
So I think some weird thing is happening. But so maybe there's a cicada blame. And of course, there was the whole the cicada themselves could get infected by something that turns into the zombie cicadas, and like half their body fell off. But they're still trying to have sex with all the other cicadas. I
mean, why let a simple thing as losing your abdomen, stop you from getting your groove on?
All right, so we got birds to worry about, but the one on my list here was this SolarWinds thing. I mean, it's just
these guys.
It's going to continue to unravel, and it's like we're just doomed, right? So the recent story, it's just this cascading attacks that are going to happen now. All these phishing attacks and stuff like that. Well, the discovery came that Microsoft's. They're doing their own investigation into Nobelium, I guess, which is the name that they've come up with for this sophisticated hack group that uses SolarWinds software updates. They're the ones that did the whole thing there, right? Where they compromised 9 U.S. agencies and hundreds of private companies out there. But in essence, one that caught my eye here is that Microsoft, has been hacked. One of their support personnel, a computer that support personnel was using, they found out that it was backdoored, I guess, and through this SolarWinds hack. And now, so now Microsoft is in essence, the whole support side of their business, which is customer facing, has been in essence hacked, and it's just like, I just feel like this story is going to be never ending for a couple of years now with that SolarWinds hack and how invasive it was. And to quote a guy here who's just a security, independent security researcher, he says, quote, I mean, Jesus, if Microsoft can't keep their own kit clear of viruses, how is the rest of corporate world supposed to do it?
Good point.
You would have thought that customer-facing systems would have been the most hardened around. Well, that's a really good point, dude. and it's like, that's just how invasive this SolarWinds thing is. And I don't know. I mean, here's one ray of hope, I guess, that it was also in the article, is that, to quote the article, the attack may also lead to a strengthening relationship between the U.S. government and cybersecurity industry, where the private security, helping federal officials fight off these nation-state attacks from foreign bad actors in the future. And dude, I mean, I guess that's where we're at, is that we're going to have to all kind of get together on this thing,
right.
The private sector, the public sector, and thwart this. But it continues to be a huge issue. And it's just
I'm getting tired of learning how to tackle problems by dealing with the worst outcomes of the problems.
Right?
I think the last year and a half has taught us, something about maybe preparedness. For things that we know could happen, but are just like, it's probably not going to happen. This is a clear example of that. I mean, it's not like hacking. It's not like this type of activity is new.
Right.
I mean, for God's sakes, we were watching films about hackers back in the 90s that were cheesy as hell and did not get anything right whatsoever about that world. But like we got those concepts as for as long as we've had computers at the ready and as part of our lives, and as long as the internet has been part of our lives, we've always understood this idea. There are people out there who will try to find ways to use it to get into places they shouldn't be in.
Right.
And yet, to your point, I do feel like we are ridiculously far behind on some levels of cybersecurity.
Well, but here's the one other aspect of this story that continues to perplex me, and it's people that are victims of phishing attacks, and it's like, how can we not understand that if you receive an email from somebody that looks a little suspicious, don't click on it?
Right.
Because now this one's a little bit more sophisticated in that, of course, with the SolarWinds, they can now take over the persona of a particular individual, like at Microsoft.com or something like that. And okay, so that maybe is a little bit harder to detect. But for anybody out there, why do people keep doing it? It is the number one attack. It's like putting a penny on the ground or something, I guess. I mean, I'm trying to think of the analogy that people are suckers for it every single time. And phishing attacks are that. You just got people out there, I saw you sent me an email with an invoice PDF in it. No.
Even though I was not expecting that.
Send you an invoice.
Even though I wasn't expecting that, and even though you have nothing to do with purchasing or invoicing, I'm going to open it up and check it out because it came from you.
Don't do that. What is this?
I know. And I like, to your point, yes, like they are getting better and more sophisticated and more, every once in a while I will get an email that for a moment I go, wait a minute. Mm-hmm. But to your point, yes, a little bit of common sense, a little bit of thought, a little bit of this feels weird. Trust those instincts.
Absolutely.
If your gut's telling you something's
email's
off,
coming from,
right?
And you get this long strand. It's not actually Amazon, by the way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I don't know, man.
That's a very good point. I mean, I know there is a definite issue and a problem here.
Yeah.
But yes, to your point, the phishing stuff, we should be far over that by now.
And I forget in the story they relate that most of the attacks that are happening as a result of SolarWinds are as I just described them, where it's still phishing attacks, but it looks like it's coming from somebody's account, and it's stuff like that. And it's like, oh my gosh, people, come on, we got to get smart about your email, because it's just like
there should be, I think, as part of school curriculum,
somewhere
in elementary school.
Yes.
There should be some
Basic
kind of class.
101.
Yeah, cybersecurity 101, or like, protecting yourself. I mean, and I'm being serious about this. Like, I think, honestly, especially, we know children in particular are very vulnerable to stuff that they see on the internet. We've talked about cyberbullying and all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
I think there would not be anything wrong with having a course for children, and maybe have it again in high school too, or whatever, that's all about, being smart on the internet and knowing the difference between real and fake, and knowing, the difference between something that's phishing and something that's legit. There's no reason we shouldn't be
or that there's
that
bad
stuff.
Actors out there trying to.
Exactly.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah. Hey, see, we're solving the world's problems, but I'm telling you, I don't know, this SolarWinds thing, it's going to be in the news forever.
It is, yes. I think this is you're gonna start seeing this become the recurring theme over the next couple of years of the latest insane hack that messed something up and slowed something down.
Yep.
Okay, so my next one here is from Morgan Stanley at Work: 7 trends that will reshape work and life in 2021. Now, interesting enough, I feel like a lot of this article covers...
You love all these workday things.
Well, I do. I kind of do. I just find I always find the concept of how we work and why we work and what work means as far as part of our lives to be fascinating.
Way too philosophical, but go ahead.
Well,
why do we work?
There you go. It's a good point. I've tried to explain it to my son before. He'll be like, well, Daddy's got to go to work. Why? And I'm just like, go spaced out for 20 minutes and he goes, Mommy, something's wrong with Daddy again. I asked about work. But so a lot of these trends, though, are stuff that I feel like we've already kind of covered in depth, so we don't really need to get too far into them. But the 7 trends that they throw out here: rethinking productivity and remote work. Totally makes sense. We've had to think a lot about that in the last year, and we'll continue to do so. Hiring and keeping top talent. And a lot of that, again, is kind of related to this idea that I know we brought it up in a previous episode about the Great Resignation.
Yes.
It might have even been our previous Tech Bytes episode, of this idea that a lot of people rethought work and rethought what matters to them over the last year. So there's a lot of people that are leaving jobs, and there's a lot of companies that are trying to figure out how to attract the right kind of people in, and what do they need to offer to make that actually happen. So let's see, what else do we have here? Boosting workers' mental and physical wellness.
Which has always been on the table a little bit, helping employees de-stress. I'm telling you, I don't know. It's that's one of those areas that it's like we're all dealing with it. And I wonder, how stressful is our life compared to other generations? And, I was listening to a podcast this morning that was like the stress of climate change and how if you're 18 to 24, it's having this dramatic increase
because that's your
stress.
future. That literally is your future.
Right, but it's like, okay, are we? And I wrestle with myself. I'm like, are we getting soft? I'm not debating whether or not climate change is a reality or not. I'm just saying, like, are we getting soft in that we're allowing these things to mentally, have a decay on us, or is it truly that we have all these additional stresses that other generations haven't had to put up with? I don't know.
Well, I think
you think about.
I think there's a little of both, but I think a part of it too there is, and I think we talked about this when we had our multi-generational workplace episode, is this idea that, go back even 40, 50 years, our parents and their parents, in the workplace, there was very much this attitude of like, you come in, you do the work, don't complain about anything, like don't let little stuff bug you, don't ask for things, don't expect to have a nice working environment or whatever. You just come in, you do the job, and you shut up about it. Yeah. And I think we've reached a point where we realize, like, look, it is okay to address issues that are concerning you.
I would agree.
It is okay to accommodate workers.
Sure.
And to this point also, I think, that mental health has become less stigmatized than it has been in the past. We still have a long way to go,
which is good.
But yeah,
absolutely.
I think that bleeds into it also, is being able to say, like, hey, I'm this is hurting me. Like, like stressing out about my job or about my day-to-day work is having an impact on my mental health and my life and my interactions with my friends and family, And it's okay to take a step back and acknowledge that. And I think what I think this is kind of saying is employers trying to help employees acknowledge that and help set up environments where they are, encouraging, focusing on mental well-being and wellness and understanding. Like, look, again, as part of this idea of keeping people on board and not losing people who may have had time to think about what really mattered to them.
Gotcha.
Is acknowledging, like, look, we do need to think about your wellness, and we're going to make sure that part of our workplace and part of our environment is about acknowledging that maybe that people need more time off, or that people need resources that they can reach out to.
Taking a 10-minute meditation is not
exactly.
as the article calls out.
That's a great example, because I've been in workplaces where if you actually go through the employee manual, it'll point out the fact, like, hey, you have X amount of time available for lunch each day, and you are also allotted 2 15 or 10-minute breaks or something like that. But how many people actually do that? Or maybe they're doing it, but they're not really doing it and taking that step away from work and really taking time to, like, step away. And those
were kind of a holdover from smokers. Back in the day, good point, people were taking smoke breaks. Then you have the employees that don't smoke, and they're like, hey, where's my break? Because they get to go out and have these whatever.
Why can't I walk outside and breathe? And
so I think that was a result of that.
But
But true. I mean, it's and I guess that's a societal change, right?
Yep.
To recognize that it's okay, take a little break, and there's studies around actually it's more beneficial. You get more out of your workday if you do take breaks a little bit here and there. Okay, we got more stuff in there.
A couple of the other trends here: updating workplace benefits for millennials.
Those daggone millennials again.
But again, I feel like that kind of almost bleeds into what we were just talking about with the previous point too. That the younger generation, millennials, Gen Z, have different expectations about what work means and what a healthy working environment is. Whether it is, I want healthy food options in the cafeteria, I want more vacation time, I want more work-life balance type stuff, and it's all that stuff that when you give it to them and you incorporate that in your workplace, guess what? All your other workers of any other generation like that stuff too. They didn't know they could ask for it, And thank you to millennials and Gen Z for coming along and actually asking for it and potentially making the rest of us better.
All right. So what do you think they mean by more flexible vacation terms? That's the one I couldn't get or wrapped around my head. It's like, right, you got a vacation allocated. I don't know what that means.
Exactly. I don't know if it's just making, having more vacation readily available, or maybe not having this thing where hey, you work here for 10 years and we'll give you 2 more days.
Okay. I see what you're saying.
Or maybe it's also flexible in the sense of, because I know, and granted, I know some employers things are different, but there are some places that'll say hey, you can't take a vacation during this time of year, or you have to use up X amount of your vacation. You can't roll anything over, or you can't do 2 weeks back to back or stuff like that. I don't know. Maybe that's kind of what they're getting into is
gotcha.
If you've got it, let us use it when we wanted to use it and how we want to use it. Maybe that's what they're asking for.
All right, fair enough.
The other 3, addressing diversity to improve hiring and retention. I think that's pretty straightforward. There's some, I will link to all these articles in the show notes, but there's some interesting statistics here about race and gender and orientation and what they struggle with, especially as it pertains to student loans. Once they get into the workforce, where they come into the workforce already behind, and maybe it's up to employers to help figure that out and help address that for them.
Yep, right.
In a productive way. Reframing open enrollment to deepen engagement. Again, this kind of goes back to this whole wellness stuff.
Yeah,
they pointed out some of the trends, in articles is stuff like mental health, financial wellness programs, childcare, retirement, virtual care, paid sick leave, that this is stuff that's important to employees right now, and making sure that your enrollment period is addressing that kind of stuff as well as making it, I think, making the idea of enrollment about more than just, hey, you've got this block of time to figure out your benefits and what you want to do, and that's it. Here's the info you need. Just do it, get it done within this time period. We're done. I think there's maybe an onus maybe on employers to put a little more effort into explaining benefits and helping people understand what's beneficial for them and giving them options and expanding maybe the variety of options that are available for them.
Yeah, which is always a struggle. And really, I think some of that's incumbent upon the provider themselves.
Yep.
I mean, come on. Those are the people that are making all the money.
I agree. And then the last trend here, deepening trust with extra financial support.
Ooh, what's that?
So this kind of points out the fact that there was a lot of companies that 46% of companies reported an increase in 401k loans and hardship withdrawals over the last year. And 27% said they fielded increased calls for pay advances. Again, obviously, we had an interesting year and there was a lot of situations we may not encounter again. But I think, again, if you can be a company that is, willing to say, hey, we are willing to help you out where we need to help you out. If you are struggling, if you're in trouble, if you need a loan, maybe your workplace can actually help you out in some way with that too. And and that's the kind of thing that would convince somebody hey, my employer really does care about me and my life, you know, outside of just what I do, 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week for them, but about me and my well-being also.
Yeah, and I think that's more directed towards larger companies because I feel like the small to medium-sized companies, those that have 20 employees or something like that, I mean, I would think that it would be the rarity that you have a small company and with great employees, and if somebody's having a hard time, that the company and or the executive of that company, because now you're in such a small company, it's probably just one person, it's the president and the owner, doesn't have some kind of flexibility to offer loans on hardship and stuff like that. So, but when you're in a bigger company, you feel a little bit more disconnected, from that, and I think that it would behoove companies that are larger in scale to still have that small feel and the flexibility to their HR department departments to allow for some of that kind of stuff to occur, because it's a great way to retain good people.
Yep.
You know,
and I think that's ultimately what these trends seem to be about: is how to get good people and how to hold on to good people by offering them flexibility and benefits and a work environment that they actually enjoy and feel comfortable in and want to stick with.
Yeah, I mean, I think, at the end of the road, I guess this article is touching on a lot of those things that we're all like, yeah, these are going to change. Remote work, hiring and retaining people. I'm going to go back up there. 3 to 4 times potential increase in number of people working from home, pre-pandemic to post-pandemic. So 4 times more people working from home. That's a lot. I mean, it's going to change a little bit of how things are going. So anyway, it did touch on a lot of good points there.
All right, tell us what's going on with Google Chrome.
Well, all right, so we got privacy issues.
Shocking. A big tech company with privacy issues?
But only somebody like Google has. So Google has delayed a major privacy change to its Chrome browser, pushing back a plan to block third-party cookies. These are third-party cookies until late 2023, as it determines how to protect users while providing web publishers a way to make money.
Let's be honest, that second part is probably the real important part here.
100%.
They can say the first, but the second is the one that's really
That's why I'm kind of calling out this article. Right. It's like, even Google, I love it when these big tech companies get into a pinch and they're like, they understand that their whole world, which is advertising, could crumble if we start making some of these rules. And it's like, they're just like squirming, right? You can just tell that they're squirming.
Yep.
Here's the quote. We need to move at a responsible pace, allowing sufficient time for public discussion, really, on the right solutions and for publishers and the advertising industry to migrate their services, says Chrome engineering director Vinay Goel, who said in a blog post. This is important to avoid jeopardizing the business models of many web publishers which support freely available content. So, it's just like, oh my gosh, they've created this rat's nest and now trying to unwind it, a little bit through, actually having some privacy protections behind it. It's going to be really interesting to see how some of this stuff goes on. But a couple other things that I read in the article that I was unaware of, that there is, Google is working on a technology called Federated Learning of Cohorts, or FLoC, which is that matches ads to large groups of people. So this is Google's way of saying, hey, instead of that direct one-to-one third-party cookie where, it's tracking everything you do, we're going to throw you in a group of people that are like-minded to you or do the same things, and we're going to let those people track you. But we're not going to track you as an individual. We're going to track you as a group. And it's like, is that really helping? Or is that what, this is their great resolve to helping us with our privacy? I don't know that that's exactly where we want to go.
I guess I understand the idea of not as hyper-specific tracking of you and everything you are doing on the web. But at the same time, do we all want to get lumped into like, oh, I'm an 18 to 35-year-old female and who has visited these 2 websites, therefore I must like all of this stuff, right? Mm-hmm. Because I could see that being problematic as well.
So FLoC has its critics, right? The Electronic Frontier Foundation, the digital rights nonprofit, says FLoC is a terrible idea. Hard stop. And Mozilla concluded that FLoC lets sites learn a lot about you with far less effort than they would need to expend today. So as such, now Google is working on revisions to their FLoC plan as well. So, it's just, privacy is, it's just one of those things that it's a wormhole, right? You start going down there and you're trying to figure out what the challenges are for all these big tech companies. I get both sides, and it's just another one of those fascinating things to see unravel and how it's going to manifest itself, and does it contribute to a breakup of these big tech groups and stuff like that. But to see them react to it and still, it's just, I don't know why I get pleasure out of big companies going, wait. We've got an answer. We're going to delay it, but we still got an answer. We got people thinking about it.
We've got an answer. And then suddenly like their 6 biggest advertisers go, we don't like your answer. Yeah. Like, we are thinking about our answer.
We're going to come back to you.
Sorry, guys.
Yeah, with a different answer.
Please keep giving us your money. Yeah. Okay, my next one is another work-themed one of sorts here. DigiDay is the website where I found this. It's called The Job Juggle. Gen Z and millennial employees embrace the concept of polywork. So the idea behind this, and there actually is an app called Polywork that kind of helps you kind of do this, and navigate this world.
Wait, I didn't know that.
Yeah, there was actually an app related to it as well. So the idea behind this, the Polywork, it says the professional workforce, particularly millennials aged 25 to 40 and Gen Z up to 24, is increasingly rejecting the concept of a full-time job and a single boss in favor of something that's being dubbed polywork, or having multiple jobs at once. A study that's blooming workforce by a new social network, also called Polywork, found that 55% of the 1,000 workers it polled aged 21 to 40 years said an exciting professional life was more important than money. Just 35% said they would envision sticking with a single job for life, while nearly 64% said they were already doing more than one job or hope to in the future. More than 70% of those surveyed believe the pandemic accelerated the trend. And I do feel like this is something that has kind of been heading this way in general. And we have, again, this is something I think we've discussed before, this idea that the stigma of job hopping is no longer a thing. Like, I don't think people were, I do remember, like, when I got into the workforce, people were always like, hey, don't jump around to a bunch of different jobs, especially over the course of just a few years or so. That looks bad on a resume. People will think you're flighty, that you are unreliable. And I'm sure some people still feel that way, but I think
it's still out there. Absolutely.
But I think the younger generations of millennials and Gen Z have kind of dispelled that myth and understand, like, look, that doesn't have to mean anything. Just because I worked at one place for 2 years, jumped ship, went somewhere else, worked there 2 years, 2 years after that, doesn't mean the same thing anymore. It doesn't necessarily mean I can't be trusted to stick around. It might just mean that some of these people decide, hey, look, I went to this place, I got what I needed out of that particular employer, learned a lot of interesting skills, took my skills to this other place, I wanted to learn some other stuff. And I think that's kind of what bleeds into this idea of polywork, which is one of these concepts that, like, I kind of like it, and also don't know if it would be for me. And granted, I'm not in the age market anymore necessarily for this, but it's this idea of, hey, I want to have a lot of different talents and a lot of different things that I am doing, and I can also see the appeal of, unlike freelance work, which is more about I got to put out to get paid. This is basically saying, like, hey, maybe I've got 2, 3, or even 4 part-time jobs, or jobs that I do at different times of the year, maybe, that I get to focus on some different skills, build a resume of a lot of different things that I know about. And I suppose if one falls off for some reason, or I decide I don't like one, I'm not suddenly financially strapped in order to get out of that and find something else. Versus, I guess, if you're working a regular one job that is your entire job, moving from job to job is a little bit more stressful and difficult, because you have to, you got to work on finding a new job while you're still working one. You can't just quit that job. Most of us can't just quit that job and spend a few weeks to months or whatever finding the next gig. It's something you're doing while you're actively still working. Maybe you don't have that time, but I could see with polywork, if you've got 3 or 4 gigs already and you can say, hey, this one's not working for me, I'm going to cut bait on that. I'm still bringing in my money from the other 3. I'm not losing out on nearly as much, and I have time to go find something else. Or maybe you get to dig in deeper into one you're already doing that you've come to enjoy. I can see some benefits out of this. I don't know if it's something I would do personally, but I can definitely see the benefits of it. And I could see how this becoming something that becomes a theme for younger generations, especially to come.
I don't know. I'm not getting my head around this whole thing. I mean, I get it. I understand the concept, but I think it's got a lot of holes in it. And so let me throw a couple of them out at you that I'm like, I don't know. I hit roadblocks in my own mind, and I get it. Maybe I'm old school and I'm trying to overcome those barriers in my head, I suppose. But, I'm just going to go back to where you were. The 21 to 40-year-old said an exciting professional life was more important than money. Yeah. You ask anybody that. If you could come up with an exciting professional life, well, yeah, and still be able to pay the bills.
But you do still need the money.
I think most people would be. So that's like this. I'm like, are they naive? I think they're just young and naive at this point.
Maybe.
I don't know. There's a little bit of that in there, because again, and what I don't understand about polywork though is like, okay, there's nothing really preventing me from doing polywork right now, except for the sense that I guess I work an 8-hour day or whatever, the
right,
job.
You already have a full-time job.
But what would my polywork be? I was trying to, query myself. What other things would I explore? Would I go into gardening and try to get would I become like a kelp farmer, which, I'm kind of intrigued by now to help with the environment and stuff like that.
Right.
Would I teach drum lessons? Because I love doing that. And, that could be a side gig. And I don't know that I'd ever make a living living off of that,
if you
though.
could do that, like let's say you could dial back your work here at BlueStar and only maybe do like half a week in your actual BlueStar work, but you could incorporate some of that other stuff. Maybe you could teach drumming on this,
Yeah,
as
but
a
I'm not
gig
going to get
2 days a
the
week
kind
or
of
something.
income doing that.
No, you're right. I guess that's
and
the
that's
point.
always the barrier. So there's the whole naive thing that I could fill my life with 6-7 different tasks or different things, but I don't know, and maybe I'm a slave to the lifestyle that we created for ourselves. So I get it. I'm trying to disband and get out of that thought process, but I don't know. I mean, to me, here's the other thing that worries me about polywork. And so as I mentally, wrestle my other situation, but what I see it coming down to is task-driven work. So I'm signing up for a particular task. And we've talked about this, and I was just talking to our HR department. There's like Indeed is coming out with, they already have solutions where people can literally sign up to do particular tasks.
Right.
And it's whether it's a 2-hour task, whether it's a 15-minute task, you can load that up on Indeed, and Indeed will find you the employees to do your 2-hour task, whatever it is.
Right.
So now we're creating this world where it's just task driven. Oh, I'm logging in to do this task for BlueStar. I'm logging in to do this task for a writing task that I love for somebody else.
Right.
And to me, task-driven world is like, ugh. I mean, now I feel like very robotic, and there's no creativity. Whereas maybe working for an employer, for a longer extended time, it allows you the time to think about how can I improve the business? What can we do better? That mindset is different than just a task-oriented mindset where, somebody gave me something to do. I did it. Got an A on it. Give me my money.
Right.
That's completely
almost
different
more
mentally.
freelancing, though. And I feel like polywork is, and not to be contrarian to you, because I do see your point there, but I think maybe where you can find that balance point, though, is to say, okay, let's say I'm doing 4 different gigs at once.
All right.
2 of them are that task-oriented type stuff.
Okay.
And those are the steady, reliable income.
All right, this is paying the bills.
Right.
Got
I know
it.
that like maybe I take calls for a call center 3 days a week from 8 to noon or something like that.
All right.
And that's the steady, reliable income that I can depend on every week. It helps me pay the majority of my bills. It's the one thing I'm holding on to. But then maybe you have one other task that's similar to that too. But then maybe the other 2 are where like one of them is, hey, I'm getting my entrepreneurial hat on and I'm working on starting up a new small business, something that I couldn't afford to do necessarily, couldn't do and still maintain my regular life if I was trying to do this full time.
Sure.
But I can extend it out. Maybe it takes a little bit longer for me to get there, but I can work on it in my off hours or in my hours not doing this other stuff. And then maybe your 4th one is just a passion project of yours. You mentioned like the whole teaching drums or gardening or something. It's something that you're passionate about. You're not sure if you can actually make any money out of it. Maybe it's just trickling in here and there, but it's supporting your passion. So I can see it. But yes, to your point though, at the end of the day, for a lot of us, unfortunately, there's I got to pay some bills, and I need my upward mobility. Maybe that's why this appeals to a younger generation.
Maybe it
that
does.
aren't necessarily there yet, because we keep hearing about the younger generations are taking longer than ever to buy houses, or simply can't afford to buy a house yet because they're still paying off student debts and just and
go see the other article, right?
And house prices are blowing up. So maybe it's about for them like, hey, this gives me the opportunity to find what my thing is and decide if I am going to devote myself to that, or at least narrow down my tree of polywork to 1 or 2 branches instead.
Maybe. I mean, to me, it seems like we're adding more anxiety. I mean, you're going to need that boosting workers' mental and physical wellness because True. Everybody's trying to find the next gig.
Maybe, I don't know. And maybe, I don't know, maybe we need to, this is one of those things we need to find somebody who's younger than us to come in here and talk about it that maybe is actually doing it. But the other thing it made me think of, though, too, is I think you can still like kind of adopt the polywork mindset in a regular job that's a single job, too, because I'll be honest, I kind of feel that way sometimes about my job at this point.
Sure.
Since, I've, taken on this gig with, the podcast, and I'm still, doing some writing on the side, campaign management. I feel like there's a lot of different hats I get to wear where I get to try out a lot of stuff and learn a lot of different stuff, but yet not feel like I have the monotony of this is just my one single job that I'm always doing day in, day out.
Clock in, clock out.
Yeah. So maybe if this concept scares you from the vantage point of literally having several different jobs that you're hopefully cobbling together a living from, maybe more of thinking like, hey, is there a way that I can incorporate that into my own current work life and not just
There you
be the
go.
monotonous
Right.
robot that's
Exactly.
only doing one thing every day, day in, day out, and getting bored of it. And because maybe that's what people are trying to avoid. And I understand that entirely. I totally understand that.
Absolutely.
So.
And how rich are we that we can talk in those terms, because there's
True.
still people in manufacturing that they got to clock in.
Exactly.
But even those environments, I think, they're cognizant of moving the workers around so that they're not doing the same thing for 15 years,
Right.
putting this bolt on this widget in this way, at least here in the U.S. I don't know about China and stuff like that. But anyway, man, lots to unpack there.
Yeah.
But now,
let's
John,
wrap up with something fun.
Imagine that you have worked your entire life. You have toiled endless hours to become a premier athlete in bicycling.
Right.
Your family has suffered. You have just toiled endlessly, hours and hours of road time, and you're on a world's best team, and you make it to the Tour de France, which is the epitome of
the
biking.
World Series, the Super Bowl, the Olympics
All
of
it.
biking. Yes,
it is. If you are in biking and you want, it's where you want to be,
Right.
and you make it to the front of the pack on day one.
Yep.
So you are like coming out of the gate.
You're one of the
awesome.
best of the best.
And lo and behold, some granny on the side of the road holds out a sign made of cardboard that reads,
I think it said like "Go
Alles
Granny" or Grandpa.
Opie Omni. So it's a mashup of French and German, right? And it says, "Come on, Granddad," from Granny. And that sign not only thwarts you, and now you've wrecked, but creates this chain reaction that we've all seen in bicycle events, where it's 50 bicyclists now that are running all over each other, broken ankles, scarred up, scraped up. Can you believe it that our society, I guess this granny just wanted a selfie. She wanted, not a selfie.
Yep.
She wanted to
be
get
seen.
on camera and be seen. And that created this absolute havoc in the first
And I
leg
gotta
of
say,
the Tour de France.
the video, like if you're into Schadenfreude, this idea of just seeing other people's misery, and you just
it's a good one to loop.
and you want to see a pratfall kind of thing. You love like pratfalls and comedic, America's Funniest Videos type stuff.
Yes, right.
Watching this on a loop is guaranteed laughter. But then, yes, when you do stop and think about it and you realize, like, man, first of all, some people got hurt. So, you messed up this entire race, damaged property and equipment. And this is just one person literally sticking a sign out. It is, because they show the video in in slow-mo.
She's
And
like
it is,
smiling.
It is so fascinating to watch. You're just like you're watching not a train wreck, a bicycle wreck literally happening.
Yes. In front of you.
Well, and I understand police are searching for her.
And she got away. How does that even happen? It's like, is that a Far Side comic or something? I mean, it's like she created this havoc and just blitzed, and
she's a bunch of chickens in a human suit or something.
Oh my gosh. I mean, there's just so much to unpack in just that one little story about what does it say about our society where people, feel the need to put themselves in the camera eye.
Well, I mean, she got what she wanted. She's definitely notorious.
Man. Yeah. But I've yet to read how many bicyclists, actually were thwarted and now can't race and stuff like that. But it's just one of those stories where you just shake your head. Yes, there's some funniness to it. And I've watched it quite a few times, because who can't watch a bicycle wreck where the guys are just piling up on each other and it's like, oh man, that hurts. Oh yeah. That type of
it's
thing.
entertaining, but and it could have probably been scarier. I know there's been some injuries. I haven't necessarily heard about anyone being seriously injured.
I don't think anybody's seriously hurt. Right.
But still, man, what a rough start. And
What
was
a
this
rough
was this day one?
This was day one.
Good
This
grief.
is like leg one. This is like it's just coming right out. So it's that line. There's just hundreds of bicyclists coming down the line, and it's right at the top. If you haven't seen the video, you gotta go watch it.
And I'm sure there was no ill intent on the part of this woman whatsoever. You do kind of feel bad for her, because you kind of almost hope no one does figure out who she is or find her. Although I'm sure someone has to know who she is, but.
It happens though. Remember Bartman?
I was just about to. Which have you ever
Cubs?
watched the 30 for 30 on Bartman?
No.
If you get a chance, I know Netflix has a lot of them. There's a couple places you can find those ESPN 30 for 30s. There's one they did on Bartman, and you realize just how
on the guy
tragic
himself.
It's basically all about that story. What happened, and it's so utterly tragic because the guy just did what any fan does at a game.
Yeah.
Which
Reach
is,
out and
ball
try
is
to get the
coming
ball.
to me. I'm going to reach out and get the ball. You're not cognizant of what's actually happening on the field.
Yep.
You're not aware of the fact.
Yeah.
And I don't even know that he really changed. People always forget it in that story that the Cubs went on to blow that game pretty dramatically after that.
Right.
And then completely blow the next game, not even come close.
But he's forever going to be the catalyst
exactly.
of that.
There's always, but it's always like that poor guy gets singled out.
And they went to the World Series years
death
later.
Threats.
I know,
He's
right?
had to basically go
I bet you
underground.
this woman gets death threats.
I know. It's just unfortunate. That's one of those things where I'm like, look, stuff happens, and I know you hate it when it disrupts, especially if you're the fan of that event or that athlete or whatever. But stuff happens, and just lay off these people that maybe just made a very bad mistake. Unfortunately,
Well, this one's I don't know. Yeah, this one's like, lady, come on, you needed to have better. I don't know. Better understanding of what's going on around you.
I know. All right. Well, that does it for our tour of stories.
Tech Bytes today. No tech beefs yet.
Thankfully, no one's put a sign out in front of us to make us crash this podcast into each other, but. Hey, listen, if you want to reach out to us, if you have any cool stories that you would like to share with us that you want to hear us maybe talk about for a future Tech Bytes, because we're going to start doing this fairly regularly, you can reach us on Twitter at TEConnectPod. You can also find us by email, TEConnect@BlueStarInc.com. All right, hey, let's wrap things up with, normally we have our value of the VAR segment. And, I do want to ask, though, was there any takeaways from any of these stories that you think could be valuable to our VAR audience that, something you think is a takeaway that, could be useful to them? Maybe not dying birds or bicycle crashes.
Well, don't click on phishing emails.
Well, there you go. That is very important. Teach your employees about that. Let's be honest. Teach your employees. If you have any connection with the IT department or you are in IT or something, put out some kind of memo to employees. Have a brief little discussion about how to spot phishing emails. That is important because that could take down your company.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. In all seriousness, I do think there's a couple takeaways. I mean, a couple of your articles were more HR related, I would say, and I think people need to continue to be cognizant of that, even though we're coming out of the pandemic. And I think there's just this general sense of, we made it kind of a thing. But things have legitimately changed. And I think companies got to figure that out, whether you're a reseller, software development company, whatever, as people, as HR departments and all those try to figure out how do we blend this work-life balance? How do we address some of the things that have come along? I'm more cognizant now of articles around that and what are other people saying and doing and thinking as we come out of this. And I think that would be a good takeaway because we were all in this together in it. We're all in this together coming out of it. And, figuring out the best ways for companies to still retain folks, still be profitable, still grow their business. HR is going to be a big component of that coming out of it.
Yeah. I think the only thing I would add to that, too, is also this idea of maybe get a little self-awareness with your company and your business. And also don't take it personally when people start leaving. Because we've talked about this multiple times now, this great resignation that's already happening and is going to continue on. You're going to lose some employees who have had time to rethink what they want to do with their lives over the last year. And it may not be anything personal to you or your business, so don't take it personally. But maybe then also at the same time, do a little self-reflection and don't be afraid to ask some questions or have your HR department ask some questions and do a little, introspection about why people might be leaving your company. If you're hearing some of the same kind of things, if you're hearing it's because they don't have the work-life balance that they want or, the benefits aren't as good as they would like, if you can do something about that, do something about it. Do a little introspection right now because I think a lot of what's going to happen over the next couple years is going to make or break a lot of companies and how a lot of companies operate and how they attract and retain talent. So now's the time to do something about it before it's too late.
And now we know a new concept called polywork. That's something I wasn't aware of, but you got to be cognizant of that.
Exactly.
Those daggone millennials, I'll tell you, they keep coming at it.
Hey, those millennials are our bosses sooner than later. Let's be honest.
That's true.
we need to start appreciating them. All right, let's wrap up with what's tech connecting with you, Dean. What's tech connecting with you this week?
Two of them for you here today, bro. So I couldn't let this one go because I brought it up, originally. So that whole, everybody's waiting around for the UFO report.
Oh yes,
government can't explain 143 of the 144 mysterious flying objects and blames limited data. Okay, so if you can't explain what is that, 99.5% of what it is, 143, they couldn't. I was expecting, here's two or three that we don't readily have an answer for. But daggone, 143 out of the 144 that have happened between 2004 and 2021 that they just,
I love that
they put in the bucket of other. I love this category too. It's like, well, it could have been a balloon, could have been whatever. Right. And then there's this other category. And what is other? Yeah, we don't know.
I love that this widely anticipated report finally comes out and just amounts to them just going,
yep.
Shrug emoji. That's what it should have been. Just like 50 pages or 100 pages of shrug emojis. Like, don't know. Yeah. Oh, except that one. That one was an experimental jet. One
we're good.
We got that one.
We got that one.
The other ones,
140. And the reason why we got here is because of that whole appropriation for the $2.3 trillion relief bill. In there was, we need to report on what all this UAP is. And so, I don't know, maybe they haven't been given enough time. We've all seen these videos now that are kind of hard to determine, what they are. You just see a little blip on a screen and whatever. It's like, okay, it's doing some weird things, but I don't know the science behind it and the physics behind what we're seeing and stuff like that. But just the fact that they don't know what 143 of them was, it's like, oh my God. Yeah. Here's my other one that's kind of tech connecting with me. I feel sorry for NASA. Hubble telescope remains in safe mode as NASA tries to restart a crashed 1980s era computer.
Man. So good luck with that.
So I lived through the 80s and, into the 90s, and I understand Windows 95 or, even before
Take
that.
out the floppy and blow into the disk drive.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, we just need somebody to go up there and do that. That's beautiful. Yes, that's exactly what NASA needs to do.
We're going to need you to take off your helmet. What? I'm in space. Just real fast and just blow in there as quick as you can, okay?
You just confused half of the audience out there. They have no idea what you're talking about.
What's a floppy?
Take out the floppy and blow in them.
Was this some weird sex talk these guys are into now? No, it's not. I promise. This is the thing.
That's how you solve Nintendo game issues. I mean, how many times have I taken a Nintendo game out and gone, and then put it back in? Boom, it works. It's like, what?
Jiggle it just right, yeah.
So NASA needs somebody up there to restart this 1980s era computer that is on the Hubble. The Hubble is such a beautiful piece of equipment that has really done some stunning work, and I know they've gotten more life out of it than they thought. But yeah, we need the shuttle go back up there. I mean, I know it doesn't, but we need somebody go up there and do a reboot.
Yep.
Anyway, what's tech connecting with you?
Mine is actually just the Ford F-150 Lightning.
Yes.
I'm sure you've seen ads for this. They've been doing commercials all over the place.
Is this the electric one?
This is the electric Ford F-150 truck. And I'm fascinated because this feels like one of the first really major electrical vehicles that's being heavily promoted. And of course, let's be honest, trucks.
Yes, right.
Is a big deal, especially in American culture.
This is a guy thing.
Right. Like Ford tough,
yes.
It's always, and I love, so it's very fascinating to me watching. I think this is mostly from a marketing perspective that I'm fascinated by this because it's fun watching the commercials and seeing how they try to still make it feel tough, which to me, just because it's electric doesn't mean it should be any less tougher. But I guess that's, again, one of these things we've made this association that electric vehicles and hybrid vehicles are for some reason not as tough and manly as
I think we're getting there
as a diesel or a gas engine spitting out all kinds of smoke or whatever. But so the advertising clearly is trying to still give it its rough and tumble reputation.
Right.
So you've got this lightning bolts coming down, and you see the truck driving through the dark with its cool front panel of lights and everything, and this cool voiceover of what's coming. And then you get these cool scenes of, people working and the front of the truck, they open the hood up. And the hood's
looking
storage.
at a picture of that. Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
It's storage space because you don't need the giant engine.
The enhanced pro power on board.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so you've got all this extra storage space. They show people these guys plugging in circular
11 outlets.
saws.
You've got 11 outlets.
All the stuff they can power.
Into.
Now the best part of it is at the end of the commercial, there's a scene where the truck is in a garage and it's plugged in and charging, and the power goes out in the neighborhood. And the truck, they show the panel on the truck that shows as the power stream's coming into the truck, it shows it reversing and feeding energy and electricity back to the house, and the lights pop back on. So it's acting as a generator for the house.
See, it's a cure-all. It's a man's cure-all.
It's like I said, I think electric vehicles are the future. It's we know we're heading that way. We will all be driving them at some point.
I think the next vehicle that I get is going to be an electric vehicle.
If all possible, I would. Probably
I'm in the market at the end of the year. I'm looking at them.
There you go. So,
you can't get them. but I'm looking.
They're hard to find, and they're hard to go out and find places to charge too. But I think that's the direction we're heading. But I do find it fascinating that Ford is doing this, and they're trying to adjust their marketing and be like, look, we're still the same cool, tough Ford truck, but we're just electric now. It's cool. It's still cool, guys. We promise. We promise. You don't have to trade in a man card that you're worried about. Just because you're driving electric, whatever,
This will be it's intriguing to see it from the advertising perspective. Yes,
it definitely
you got all these smart people in these ad agencies. How do we make this cool for a dude?
It's a very well done commercial. I'll give them that. Yeah. It's a very well crafted commercial. They did a good job with it. But,
that's pretty good. Good stuff. Good stuff.
All right, folks. It is time for us to unplug. Listen, try not to disrupt any major sporting events in the future. Just pull your cardboard back a little bit. It's okay if you're not on television. You don't want that notoriety, yes. Mm-hmm. And don't touch any crazy dead or blind birds that you might see. So that's our takeaways from today. So thanks so much for joining us. Until next time, stay connected. When choosing a POS solution, choose the leaders in touch technology, ELO. ELO touch computers are the surest, fastest way to get a POS application started and provide long-lasting use with a multitude of options. For modular configurations, ELO has the ELO POS and iSeries touch computers, which are available in a variety of sizes, offer flexible mounting, and support for easy customization with a variety of ELO EdgeConnect accessories to choose from for self-service and point-of-sale applications. If an all-in-one solution is what your customers need, ELO PayPoint has you covered, offering everything a merchant needs with a fully integrated receipt printer, barcode scanner, cash drawer, and MSR, all in a compact, sleek design. To learn more about how ELO can simplify your next POS project, check out the link in the show notes or contact your BlueStar ELO representative. Providing the right care to the right patient at the right time is crucial. By connecting patient data, clinicians, and providers in real time using Zebra's healthcare technology solutions, providers can consistently deliver a higher level of care with fewer medical errors. With Zebra's purpose-built solutions, you can ensure easy access to critical patient data through seamless integration and device management. The strength of the Zebra Healthcare portfolio helps maximize clinical operational efficiency and patient safety in critical areas like positive patient identification, clinical mobility and collaboration, and with supply chain and inventory management activity. Looking to improve accuracy, clinical staff productivity, and patient safety? Go with Zebra Healthcare.